Hello, I'm Shelley Rothus, and I'm a different kind of victim. Okay, we're back for part 6, continued of conditioned, normalized assholism syndrome. And yes, we'll be continuing and not pausing. So, last time I had discussed Paula J Caplan, which was the best article I have ever read based upon what I've been discussing as for my whole point for this topic, based upon the mental health field and where the flaws are within that and also within society as a whole. So what I had discussed last time based on Paula J Caplan is how the mental health field continuously brings up, or makes up all these different terms and mental illnesses, which is basically giving people excuses and exceptions instead of taking responsibility for the behaviors or actions that they choose to do and are able to make that decision. So I'm going to continue, and this is again based on conditioned, normalized assholism syndrome instead of the term that gives the excuses and exceptions for those who are capable of choosing their behaviors and actions. Any person who chooses to use abusive behaviors or actions on another person will also be tempted to use those same excuses and exceptions for why they choose to do those inexcusable behaviors or actions. Common excuses or exceptions that abusers use: it's not you, it's me. I have trust issues. Many people have deceived or betrayed me. I'm too old to change my ways. I was abused. I am depressed. I was raised this way. Now here's where the abuser and victim can connect to my term. The abuser learns that these excuses or exceptions are factual, logical reasons for why they choose to use abusive behaviors or actions on innocent people. The abuser begins to normalize these inhumane behaviors or actions when they get a false sense of security based on how they see using these unacceptable behaviors or actions as a form of self-protection. Although, just like the victim ends up harming themselves more, the abuser also ends up harming both themselves and their victims. The abuser also has an invisible shield of protection that they themselves know won't give them any positive outcomes for being able to have healthy relationships with others in their life. Like I have been saying throughout all of my videos, it is easier to be an asshole than to be a bigger person and admit to your mistakes and take responsibility for the behaviors or actions you choose. Now, this is another reason why Professor Dyer is my favorite teacher. Professor Dyer always taught the importance of therapy that includes teaching your client to take responsibility for their behaviors or actions. This is why his favorite treatment method was using cognitive behavioral therapy on his clients. Although he did describe using that therapy mainly on those who are choosing to use unacceptable behaviors or actions. Now I am going to put the two geniuses' theories together to make a more logical understanding as for why people will choose to regularly use abusive behaviors or actions within their relationships. I will use Ken as my guinea pig again to explain this more logical theory. I'll use what Ken said to me after the last bullying incident. I haven't turned away. I am still trying to figure out what is and isn't. You are 20 times more trusting than I have been since I was 8. I learned a long time ago that it's easier to not trust than to deal with the pain of betrayal once again. In the cheesiest way possible, I mean this with all the sincerity in the world. It's not you, it's me. Again, Ken is a genius himself and doesn't even know it. Now that is a quote that should be plastered everywhere for everyone to see. Why is that? Because it is one of the deepest and most captivating quotes I have ever read. This quote is genius because it can apply to not only the person who is applying it to themselves, but it can apply to numerous things as well. It is also a quote that will not only inspire, but will make your brain have a very lengthy workout. I myself have read many quotes that remained in my mind and made me have to think really hard to figure it out. But this quote was the first one that took me the longest to analyze. Let's just say that it is the first quote that gave me many headaches. Most people will first assume that it means this person has a lot of trust issues and is letting that person know that they aren't the reason why they are having these issues. Also, most will apply the part, "It's not you, it's me," to a popular quote to end an intimate relationship with someone they no longer want to have in their life. Again, see how many people will automatically assume that you are in an intimate relationship if you are comfortable enough to open up that much with another person. Let's take note that it was after Ken had said this to me when he started to treat me differently than he had in the past. Ken had started to respond with only a few words when we spoke to each other. Then he began to softly ghost me shortly after that. My personal intuition felt as though Ken had begun to fear communicating with me. It was an internal feeling that I had naturally felt. I was actually very nervous that Ken was afraid that I may have made the assumption that he meant more than what he actually was trying to express to me when he said that quote to me. Although I actually only took those words as someone who felt comfortable enough to open up with me because they felt like I am an empathetic and trustworthy person who wouldn't use his personal secrets against him as a form of revenge if something did cause our friendship to be destroyed. Which to this very day, I honestly don't want to even hurt Ken, even though he has hurt me in many ways that never happened to me by anyone else besides my 3 assholics. Like I said, Ken's words of wisdom will follow and be used by me forever. Now I will personally analyze my guinea pig's personal quote. Paula J Caplan's quote, "Do you believe that everything but sheer delight should be called a mental illness?" Ken's quote expresses that it is easier to always avoid or run away from any relationship that ends up having more than a small amount of trust within it. This is where my theory of "it's easier to be an asshole" stands very true. Ken has conditioned himself to believe that it's in his best interest to avoid any relationship that he has stronger feelings that requires one to trust another person more than a small amount. Ken had learned to respond to these self-learned threats by using behaviors and actions that ends up causing the potential harm to have negative feelings for him, which in turn will save him from the painful emotions that would require him to take responsibility for his unacceptable behaviors or actions that he chose to do. The goal is to hurt his potential threat to the point that victim will leave the relationship without him having to go through the painful emotions that would cause him to feel guilty and ashamed of himself. I myself knew that was what he was attempting to do with me. Again, I wanted to be a different kind of victim. How was I a different kind of victim? I was different because I didn't just run away with the painful feelings by Ken's unacceptable behaviors or actions he chose to use on me. This is one secret that I never told anyone until now. I purposely decided to continue interacting with Ken while knowing that Ken was treating me in ways that I didn't deserve. I remember telling my friend Brittany that I was being ghosted by someone that I was friends with. She automatically told me to run and not go back. I decided that I was not going to do what most would automatically advise another person to do when they are in this type of situation. Just like I refused to continue to remain silent with my 3 abusers and just walk away, I also refused to use that unfactual theory with Ken when he was using abusive behaviors or actions on me. Even though I knew all along that our relationship had ended and I didn't have any more hope that Ken would eventually have the personal integrity to be the bigger person and admit to what he had done to me, boom, right there is your answer to why it is easier to be an asshole than to have the personal integrity to be the bigger person. It is human nature to not only avoid painful emotions, but to do whatever it takes to lessen those painful emotions that follow inhumane behaviors we choose to use on others that can result in feelings of shame and result in lowering one's pride for themselves. And again, boom, Professor Dyer's knowledge based on how those who return to their drug abuse dependency also applies to those who use abusive behaviors or actions as a way that gives them the false belief that they will benefit the most in the end from making this decision as for how they treat others they have a relationship with. This is because the one who feels like a failure due to using a drug one time after achieving what those substance abuse programs teach their clients as what they should focus as the most important part of their success can actually end up having a negative outcome by lowering their confidence to get back on the wheel and accept and admit to not only others but also to themselves that they have made a bad mistake. The same applies to the situation between me and Ken. Even though I obviously proved everything that Ken had done to me was based on lies that he and others made, Ken decided to take the easiest route out by tossing me out and blaming me for the entire situation instead of being a bigger person and taking responsibility for his inhumane behaviors or actions that he knows harmed me. Either way, Ken is the reason why our relationship was destroyed. Again, I am proving that even though the victim will often blame themselves for the abuse that happens to them, I do realize that I am not at fault for the inhumane behaviors or actions that Ken chose to use on me. The flaw that Paula J Caplan found in the mental health field also applies to all types of abuse. I have proved that abusers are capable of controlling their behaviors or actions, and just like making a mental illness for sexual offenders will only end up giving those offenders a free ticket to continue those abusive behaviors or actions, does in fact apply to all those who choose to use abusive behaviors or actions on others. This proves that we do need to make changes in the mental health field, but not using unfactual information or theories that only make excuses and exceptions for those who choose to use those inhumane behaviors or actions on others who don't deserve to have that happen to them. This is where the flaw of believing that person using those abusive behaviors or actions doesn't realize that they are harming another person is not factual. Ken knows that he has harmed me, but he has conditioned himself to normalize these inhumane behaviors as a way that he believes will make him most likely to be successful at being the one to avoid negative emotions, and sees that as benefiting him the most when the relationship does come to an ending. Ken himself has been deceived or betrayed in relationships and still remembers certain relationships that caused him emotional pain. When one has the ability to know or wouldn't want to feel or experience abuse, they are also able to understand that others also wouldn't want it done to them either. So, narcissistic personality disorder gives the excuse and exception for abusers by stating that they are disabled and aren't able to understand what they are doing and not able to care about others. The logical analysis is that they don't want to be the bigger person and take responsibility for their chosen behaviors or actions. They are very self-centered due to their fear of admitting to themselves and others that they had intentionally harmed others. When I stated that Ken chose the easiest route, that is a fact because he is able to understand what he did wrong and is capable of controlling his behaviors and actions. So we should start teaching the truth about these inhumane behaviors or actions and stop making excuses and exceptions that have only encouraged and enabled many abusers to continue harming innocent people for far too long now. So basically, everything that I had just read is a summary of what I have gone over based upon my favorite teacher, Professor Dyer, and what he had taught in the class that I had missed that part as for what it means as for the word that he used to describe this, which I don't remember, the mnemonics. Anyways, that's exactly true, because those programs, it gears the people to believe that they are a failure. If they've been clean for a year and they had a little sip, oh my goodness, I'm a failure. Oh my goodness, yeah, I'll just keep going. That's the same thing as abusers. If we give them excuses and exceptions, say, well, okay, they emotionally abuse somebody, and hurt them and do stuff, like what Ken did to me, and they think, I got a mental illness, I can't help it, that's what they wanted to do with, sexual offenders and make, rapism, as though people can't control themselves, and, it's like, okay, I see somebody over there, yeah, I'm gonna sexually assault them, I can't hold myself back, give me a break. People are able to make choices and decisions based upon their behaviors and actions, and that applies to everybody. So many of you are probably thinking, so do I ever admit to my behaviors and actions when I am wrong? Okay, well, this is gonna be hard. I guess I was kind of mean to Ken, but I guess I have to admit this can be hard too. Okay, I'm gonna have to keep on unzipping my mouth. Okay, so I had a little thing happen between me and my male friend where I kind of got upset at him, and so I decided to have a talk, and I discussed communication with him, and was hoping for feedback. And the way I went about it is I asked him straight up. I said, so what is it that you don't like about me? What are negatives? Well, he said, well, sometimes I don't like the way you talk to me. I think that was because I was pretty pissed off about something that he did, and I kind of gave him a mad text. So anyways, that goes back to, okay, where I had made the video based upon describing the cult clan members and what their, good sides about them, what they're good at. I had said that Ken is good at arguing. Okay, darn, I have to say it again. Yes, Ken is better at arguing than me. Oh my God. See, that's hard to say, especially after when that person has done so many things to you. Okay, so yeah, like I said, he could have taught a group based upon arguing when he's not under the bad influence. So let's just say I could have used him. So what was it about that how Ken argued when he wasn't under the influence? One thing he did was that he listened, and listening doesn't mean just hearing it and it goes in one ear and out the other. When he did listen, what's the first thing that he did? He would give feedback based upon what I had said to him. Well, like I said, he would start off mean, but then he was able to stop himself, and he'd be like, okay, and he'd give feedback in ways that could actually be effective and actually make that situation turn around. And how does that work? That deals with having empathy and understanding where that other person is coming from too, instead of just focusing on yourself, which can be kind of hard to do, especially when it deals with things that kind of frustrate you or even may hurt you or you may dislike. But just like in any type of relationship, like I said, it's very important to have respect and all what those letters stand for within it in order to have a healthy relationship. So that brings me to the next point. Actually, when I said the word relationship and I mentioned that to this male friend, I was like, if we expect to have a good, healthy relationship and for it to continue, then, communication is important, and I said, we both have to put effort. And right away, he's thinking, relationship as an intimate partnership. I was like, oh my goodness. I'm like, no. I was like, I even said it, what I had used as a topic here. I said, that's sloppy, hypocritical ageism. I swear, I always have to say this, people. Get your head out of the gutter. Oh my goodness. Not everything's about that, people. So, anyways, that's my frustration. I could say, Gówno, jada nastia. That's Polish. I used to use, Polish for swear words. I could call Ken, after just saying something nice, I'll say, Gówno, you pena no tupa. No, okay, I'll stop. No, see, that's not good at arguing. I guess, swearing at somebody, that's not gonna change the circumstance. Again, yes. So the way that effective communication works is that you listen, you're able to compromise and give in a little bit. And the way you speak is also important, where you're not attacking the person as to where they feel afraid or threatened. Because why are they going to want to talk if you're making them feel afraid to say anything? So, what was, like I stated, that person said something negative to me. So, I actually appreciated that, being honest with me. Many people would get offended if they, are told that they don't like the way, that somebody was talking to them. Somebody said that to them, they would be offended. But in a relationship, it's a good thing to be able to state the negative things about that person. Because when he said that to me, I was like, I agreed with him. I said, you're right. Sometimes I do, get edgy and whatnot and take things a little bit too far. And I said, there's no excuse for it. I immediately said that there is no excuse for it. And that's something I know I have to work on, and I'm trying to work on. There's many things I have to work on based upon what I've been through and what I've been conditioned in. And one of those things is watching myself as for effectively communicating my feelings without doing it in ways that are not effective. So I have just gone over most part of conditioned, normalized assholism syndrome, and it's almost over as for part 6, and I'll be continuing part 6 to hopefully finish it off as for this whole part of part 6, which is pretty long, as I had stated from the beginning. It's going to be pretty long because I'm that type of writer that just loves to write. Actually, I was possibly getting a job as a writing teacher or English teacher, but with the situation I'm in, I don't have the transportation. And just today I had gotten offered a possible position as a teacher, as an English teacher or a writing teacher, but I can't right now due to the situation I'm in as for transportation. But they're going to keep me on the list for next year, so who knows, maybe I'll become a teacher. I do love writing, but as for right now, the one position that I really wanted right from the start, like I said even before I had escaped, that's exactly what I want to do right now. Who knows what the future may bring. And like I feel right now is taking one step at a time and leading me to the right way, and that's exactly what I'm doing. So I hope to see you for part 6 continued on conditioned, normalized assholism syndrome. I'm Shelley Rothus, and I'm a different kind of victim. See you next time.